Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Deal Me In. I am the Gentleman Wake, your host as always. Unfortunately, Chris Moyer could not join us today, so I'll be flying solo. That is until we bring on our esteemed guests who will join us in a little bit. I just want to give everybody a little bit of an update as to current TGW projects. We have some good news. The Beetlebacks are steadily in production. The tuck boxes are finished and en route to WJPC, so that's exciting. And I believe we were scheduled to be printing the cards either today or tomorrow. So everything should line up quite well. As far as that's concerned, hopefully get the decks back stateside way before the Chinese New Year, which is always the goal. When you're dealing with Asian manufacturing companies, because you don't want to bleed into Chinese New Year, because then everything takes an extra month and a half. So anyway, the good news is that those decks are on the way, so that's exciting, and hopefully we get that project finally fulfilled after the whole Cardamundi delay situation. So we're happy that that's happening finally. The tuck boxes look beautiful. Studio Presión and JC has done a fantastic job with the printing of those tuck boxes. Aside from that, we are happy to preview the fact that I don't know if you guys follow Lorenzo Gaggiotti, aka Stockholm 17, on his social medias or are a member of his Patreon. Then you would have seen the fact that we are working on a follow-up to the Parlor called the Parlor Royale, which is basically a continuation of the Parlor line and kind of filling in the blanks where there's some gaps since that was the first campaign we ever did. I ever did as TGW, and we never produced a gold legacy deck. We never produced a prism deck like we have for subsequent series. So we're going back and kind of revisiting the Parlor, a whole new approach to the back design, whole new tuck boxes, some new aces, some new jokers. It's really actually every card is different in some way. It feels a lot more royal, hence the name, than I think the Parlor felt, which was obviously a little bit more. I felt a little bit more intimate, but I think we're excited about that and hopefully launching that project relatively soon. We're talking about prototypes now, so I think that is on the horizon, and we'll for sure keep everybody abreast of that development. All right, so as far as that's concerned, I think that's everything TGW for now. Again, if you are interested in any TGW decks, head on over to thegentlemanwake.com. You can see the Goldskeeper deck, which is there, which is obviously, I'm sorry, the Groundskeeper deck, which is from Wormwood, is available. We have 3 editions: the Cobalt, the Crimson, and the Clover edition, which is a special edition, which is gilded in gold. And we also have the Goldsmith by Kevin Cantrell Jr. Listen to me, by Kevin Cantrell Studios. Kevin has done a fantastic job on that set. It's beautiful. It's already in people's hands, and the reviews have been raving. Excellent rave reviews. So we're very excited that that's finally in customer hands. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to bring on the guest. Today we are joined by Randy Butterfield. Randy is also the owner and operator of Midnight Playing Cards. Many decks he's the designer of over the course of really the last decade, probably, right, Randy? More or less?
A little over 12 years now.
12 years. Okay, so yeah, so over a decade. And I think we're going to learn a little bit about how Randy does things, which I think is a little different than what we've gotten used to from other folks that we've had, other designers that we've had on the stream to discuss their process. I think Randy's process is a little different, but let's get to know Randy. So tell us a little bit about yourself. This is our first chance to have a face-to-face conversation. So I'm curious, as aside from the fact that the audience is probably going to be curious too, but tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into playing cards? How'd you arrive in this world?
So I was working on a project with my cousin, and he kind of wrote me into it. And it was a board game. So I was like, well, if you're serious, Indianapolis, where I live, has one of the largest board game conventions in the world, Gen Con. Right. So I was like, well, let's get a booth there and try to sell it to a publisher. And So we spent like a year working on the prototype and the design and stuff, and then we got a booth at the entrepreneurs section, which is, you know, in the corner, but it's a little cheaper and stuff. But as soon as we get there, a lot of the people were like, "Why don't you just use Kickstarter?" We're like, "What's that?" And so I, while we were at Gen Con, I was looking at my, you know, we were looking up Kickstarter on the phones and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." I saw Revision One deck from Circle City Cards, which is also in Indianapolis, was on Kickstarter and it was like doing really well. I was like, "Oh, it was." I don't know if anybody knows that one. It's an old one. It's a blueprint theme design. So I was like, "Oh, that's a cool idea," and I kind of kept that in my mind. And later on, after the board game thing didn't go through, I started designing the ornate decks like probably less than a year later, and just been doing that since. And I just do the playing. So I don't do playing cards full time.
Mm.
I usually just spend like an hour or two a night working on card designs.
Mm-hmm.
Usually around 10 o'clock or to midnight or so.
So,
Yeah.
how many decks over the years have you designed, would you say?
Um, I know it's over 100 now, but it's, you know, some of them are variations of the same
Right.
design,
Right.
like the ornate decks. I think we had over 20 overall. Those things,
Wow.
yeah,
Right.
that thing was a little nuts. But then some decks, like the Indiana Euchre, is just one deck, you know, and just
Right.
yeah. So it all depends. But yeah, I know the different print runs have been over 100 different decks. Yeah.
And over those decks, you've done how many Kickstarter campaigns have you worked on?
That I have no idea. Probably about 20 something, maybe
20.
less. I don't know.
So
Because some
you've
were,
been around from basically the inception of the, like, kind of the resurgence of playing cards as a
yeah,
hobby. Uh
yeah,
and
yeah. Because
what
when,
was that like? Like, what was that experience like? Like seeing something that maybe you weren't aware was a thing and then became a thing? Like, were you always into playing cards?
no, not really. I mean, I always thought they were cool, and I've played poker for years.
Right.
Um, but I never thought about doing like a custom design deck of cards until I saw that revision one. Um, but what was I going to talk about? So during when I was working on the ornates was, yeah, the beginning of Kickstarter
Uh-huh.
pretty much with the playing
Mhm.
cards. And my plan with that was to launch it on Kickstarter, but then Kevin Raylick contacted me and told me about HOPC that they were working on. And so I decided to release the ornate decks through HOPC instead. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if I had done Kickstarter instead, because that was during like Paul Carpenter's original deck. God, Lorenzo wasn't on Kickstarter yet because
Right.
he was doing HOPC as well. But I know there were some others like Lance Miller early on, and yeah, the so it was definitely the beginning of it, and so I didn't get on to Kickstarter probably until a couple years later,
Mhm.
and that was when we started doing like HOPC started doing Kickstarters. So we did like the Imperial deck
Mhm.
um, on Kickstarter, and then we did that big ornate deck Kickstarter that had like 10 versions or something insane. So yeah,
S-
yeah.
So how would you say it's changed since those early days? Or like what was like the trajectory like for you?
Well, with those ones I didn't have to do any marketing because Blue Crown and HOPC did all
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I didn't have to deal with any of that stuff. So a lot of the in behind this, like I built the presentation page and stuff, but other than that, I was I was kind of out of it and just kind of checked in every now and then.
Mhm.
Um, so I didn't do my own Kickstarter until I think it was 2014. So about 10 years ago, I did the original Draconians on Kickstarter.
That's one of my favorites. Yeah,
It's,
definitely.
so those ones. They did really well, and it was definitely fun to do.
Yeah, Stu was
Definitely, it
saying
was
that
definitely, it
he's
was definitely,
excited for the new ones, that are coming.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those should be at my house in about 2 weeks or so, and I'll just
Oh,
start
that's great. Cool.
ship them out to backers as soon as they come. So yeah, so the one thing that's very different from back then to now is you didn't really have to do a lot of marketing because the people, playing card collectors, they knew because there wasn't a whole lot of cards out there yet. They knew every deck that was going to be launched on
Hmm.
Kickstarter.
Hmm.
Nowadays, there's one almost every day or something, and it's
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's a big difference.
yeah, yeah.
So, so obviously, which campaign was the most successful one you had? Was it Draconians?
No, it was the one on my Kickstarter project thing was probably Red Rising,
Okay.
which
How much
is
did that one raise?
that one was we had I think about 1,900 backers and
Oh, wow.
100 and something thousand. I think
Great.
125,000, something like that. That one is
And
that one was officially licensed with author Pierce Brown,
right.
based off his Red Rising books, the first trilogy of them.
Uh-huh.
Some of my favorite books, and that that is mostly due to the huge fan base of Red Rising. There's
Right.
the people who love those books are awesome. I see them, I meet them all. So I sell some of the leftover decks at shows that I do,
Right.
and so I meet Red Rising fans all the time, and they're like, "Oh my god, Red Rising deck! Wow, this is cool," stuff like that. And so it's nice seeing that in person.
So you mentioned earlier that you usually work, late on
Mhm.
the cards. Like, how often are you working on cards, and what is that process like? Like, when do you come up with an idea for a design and decide, hey, this is a theme that I'm want to explore? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, I got in my notes on my iPad. I have lots of theme ideas, and I just kind of figure out what I want to work on each year. And sometimes some ideas jump ahead of others and stuff.
Hmm.
And then when I'm ready to work on an idea, I just slowly get into it. Like I'll usually could do an hour a night just to slowly get into it, and then by after a couple months, I'm doing like 2 to 3 hours a night, and
Right.
if I set like a deadline for myself, like, oh, I got to launch this before September because you don't want to do a Kickstarter in October or November or December.
Sure.
So
Sure.
then it's like, oh, I got to hurry up and get the design done and stuff like that. So then I'll do like kind of crunch time at night. But even then, the most I would work at night on cards is probably 4 hours because if I if I lose track of time and go to bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning or something, then I'm kind of wiped for the next day. And
Are you a night owl like I am?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm a
So I
night
have to.
owl.
There's sometimes I have to force myself to go to sleep because it's like,
Yeah, that happens to me too. I just end up finding stuff to do at 1 in the morning, like, for some
yeah,
reason. But then, my 9 a.m. is forget about it. Like, I'm toast. Like,
yeah.
I'm still in bed. So where was your design background, and like, how did you go to school for design, or how did you end up as a designer?
I graduated from Central Michigan, and with the Bachelor of Fine Arts in Graphic Design in
Right.
19,
Cool.
1995.
Don't date yourself.
Yeah, I'm old. I don't care. So when I was learning design at Central, I think it was either Photoshop 1 or Photoshop 2 what we were working on. There was no layers yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
and we were still using Quark Express and all
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And
Were you chiseling in stone as well?
I know, but it was
uh,
cool. And then at my um right after college, my first job that I worked at for 4 years was at a print shop,
mm,
and I worked in the pre-press department. Like I troubleshoot and print files to film or linotype paper and stuff. So
uh-huh.
I learned a lot about printing just with that job alone. That was in Toledo, Ohio. My ex-wife and I moved there, and We were there for 4 years, and then after that, I kind of took a chance and moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, and got a job right away out there at an ad agency in downtown San Francisco, and it's technically the still agency I work with today. We just all started working from home. God, probably about
Since the pandemic, I imagine.
no, more like about 18, 19 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's
So,
been a while.
and
So this is some of the stuff that you're
oh yeah,
talking about, right?
yeah.
You sent me some
So,
of this stuff. This is so these are like designs that you do for in-store displays for
yep,
liquor brands.
yep. This is my day
Oh,
job.
this is not. Let's
Oh,
not talk
that's
about that
yeah.
yet. We'll go back to that. But yeah, so this is a kind of, an agency will hire you to come up with a design for in-store kind of displays or whatnot.
Yeah. Well, we work directly with the clients, so we work directly with like Patron and
Right.
Grey Goose, Jameson, Absolute.
Cool.
So that's like the flat of the Jameson three
You've got a
something.
fully stocked bar at home, I imagine.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always joke, my day job is booze and my night job's gambling. So,
Yeah, wow. Talk about the vices. Interesting. Cool, man. That's all. I took a look at some of this stuff. Obviously, we're gonna look at that a little later because I want to ask you about
okay.
those decks. So obviously, you don't stick to anyone's style or anyone particular. I have seen some of the stuff. So let me ask you, which decks of yours would I not know are yours that I might own, or that somebody out there might own that doesn't realize that you've designed it?
I think a lot of people, mostly the freelance ones, like the honeybees,
Honeybees,
or
okay.
the Lux decks.
Lux. Oh, those are cool.
So I did the original Lux deck, and then the color variations of that design, and then I did the Lux Elliptica, and then Rick Davidson, Rich, I think
Rick David. Yeah.
Rick Davison did the other Lux designs, like I think it was Mandela and Griel. Yeah, so he did those ones. Yeah.
Did you do? And I might be confused about this. Did you do the Breaking Bad decks?
So that one I did the design.
Okay.
So
but you didn't do the illustrations for that one.
No. So trying to think of his name. The guy from Albino Dragon contacted me and said, "Hey, I have a artist who already has the drawings done for a Breaking Bad deck, but he doesn't do any design work."
Right.
And so he's like, "Hey, do you want to can I hire you to do the design for it?" I was like, "Sure." And so and Breaking Bad is one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, great show.
So I started doing the design, and we did, the plan was just to do the green deck with the smoke and everything.
Right.
And then I talked to him, I was like, "You're doing this. We got to do
blue crystal,
blue ice deck
too."
So I talked him into doing that. And so we put that one together as well. And yeah, so that one.
Yeah, I love that deck. Back when I used to do reviews more often, obviously I haven't really been doing reviews lately, but back when I would do them with skits, like back in the day, I almost did one for Breaking Bad because I was going to dress up like Walter White. I'm a huge fan of the show. And Lady Wake was going to be Jesse, and we were going to do like this whole bit, about the one who shuffles. But we never got around to do. I even bought the costumes and everything. We just never got around to doing it. It was just too much work to get in the hair, to get my hair inside one of those bald caps and do the whole makeup thing. It was just a pain in the butt. But yeah, we were really excited about that. We're going to do that at one point. So we almost did that. I did, however, feature the Nerds deck that you did, the Nerds and the Jocks that you did on my channel. I can't remember for what episode I did. I think I did an 80s episode on my channel, which is like, notorious for the cringe value of the skits that we did in that one. But in that episode, we talked about, obviously the 80s inspired decks. You had sent me some prototypes of the Nerds and the Jocks deck, which I love. I love the obviously the little homages to the different films and kind of the 80s era that are in those decks. It's really fun.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. So all right, so obviously you've got a day job as a designer, you're designing decks, you're doing a Kickstarter here and there, you're taking freelance jobs for decks, but your approach to the business of producing playing cards is a little different, right? Because you obviously you go on these shows and you do these shows.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about that with these trade shows that you work on.
So the shows, they kind of started where I had to. I almost had to figure out a way to sell um, some old decks that um, I couldn't really sell online.
Right.
So I won't go into too much detail, but let's just say Pandrea and I didn't end in well terms, and
Mm.
he owed me a lot of money, and I was
Uh,
like, well, we came to an agreement where he would send me the rest of the white ornate decks that were left
uh-huh.
over,
Uh-huh.
even though they're marked all sold out for a while.
Right.
Um, and and then the snake oil elixir deck was another part of the deal where I designed that, and then he paid for the printing. I get half the decks, he gets half the decks, and we part ways.
Right.
Um, so I had all these ornate decks, and I was like, holy crap, what am I going to do with all these? Because there was um, between the 10 different decks, there was, only a couple of them had over 100 in stock, but between the 10 of them, there was over 1,000 decks. I'm like, what am I going to do with these things?
Yeah.
And my wife was actually, she was a stay-at-home mom at that time, and she was, to kind of have fun, she was doing soap. She was making soap and doing some shows, like just little local shows and stuff. Like, and she even did a Comic-Con one time and did like these little soaps that are like, superhero type
Mm-hmm.
shields and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I was like, you know what, I might try that with the cards. And so I did some shows the year I got the ornates, and it went really well. And then each year I just kept doing a little more shows, and then I would also have more variety because it'd be some of the ornates would sell out, and then I'd have some more new decks to put on the table and stuff too
Mm-hmm.
as well. And so now, years later, the ornates have been gone for probably about 5 or 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I usually have about 28 decks at a show.
Mm-hmm.
I could have probably 30 so I have at home about 30 different decks at any time.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned that at 8 foot table, 28 decks is about as many as you can get on there. Like that picture there is probably 27 or 26 decks. Um,
And would you say, and what kind of trade shows are these?
so that one there was a big spring festival. So I'll do Comic Cons. So I'll do a few Comic Cons, some summer festivals, some spring shows, and then fall usually has some good shows. And then I do some art shows during like juried art shows where you got to apply, and then like they have a couple jury members to see who gets in and who gets out.
Mm.
Um, some of those, I know which ones I'll get into now versus what I won't, because I started doing those a couple years ago, and I learned the big ones, they don't like the mass produced stuff at all. So they don't think of the playing cards as something that they want to see there. But
Mm.
I've done, like this year, I did probably about 8 art shows.
Mm.
Um, and then I usually do holiday shows at the end of the year. So like I have this year I'm done with the shows except for 3 big holiday shows.
Mm.
2 in Indiana and 1 in Michigan. So the
And
holiday shows are great.
would you say that, so obviously it's worth it, right? It's worth it to get out there and to
Yeah.
do these shows. How many decks are you selling at a normal show?
Oh, I got my iPad here because I don't have
Okay.
anything memorized.
I love numbers, love stats.
So last year I did 20 shows, which I learned that's too many.
Uh-huh.
I'm dropping it back down to 17 or 18. But last year was 20 shows, and it averaged 273 decks per show, and it was 5,464 total decks. Um,
5,054. And what's your average price for your decks?
Oh, so when I do the shows, that's the other reason why my prices are always very low.
Huh.
So I sell the decks at the show. I learned this from the beginning. I used to have different prices
Uh-huh.
when it was just the ornates and a few others,
Uh-huh.
and it's just I learned a lot pretty quickly. It's just easier to just have one deck, one price for any deck.
Right.
So I have it $10 for any one deck, $18 for any two, 24 for any three, and then it goes down to like $6 per deck if they buy like 9 of them.
How often are people buying more than one?
Pretty well, pretty often. A lot of times they'll get 2, sometimes
Mm.
3, and then if they're buying for family or gifts and stuff, they'll buy a
Uh-huh.
bunch. Like I had one lady last year at that holiday show with the red trees. I was busy talking to a bunch of people and showing them the stuff because I always have to show them what the cards are that I design them and stuff because most
Mhm.
people don't even know what custom playing cards are.
Right.
And this one lady just came in, started grabbing a bunch of Indiana euchre decks. She's like, I need 17 of these for my brothers, sisters, and cousins. I'm like, okay. And so, you get that every now and then and stuff
Right.
too. Yeah. Yeah. Like that show was in Indianapolis at the state fairgrounds. And that show was my biggest show I've ever had. And the Indiana euchre deck was the biggest one, which was almost 300 decks at that show sold.
That's great. I
Yeah.
mean, 300 decks at $10 a pop is still it's a nice
Yeah.
chunk of change.
That deck is like I did a Kickstarter for that originally. I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kickstarter had like maybe 100 backers and stuff because euchre decks, most people don't even know what that is.
Right.
And so I printed like 1,250 of the original print run, and I've done the 4th print run is on the way with the Draconian Crimsons right now. So that one's over 7,000 decks printed so far, and I have hopefully those decks come in time for this year's show with the red trees there because I have less than 100 left in my house. So
Right. So
yeah.
what is the typical process as far as like you finish a design? How long does it take you to finish a design before you're printing it?
So I always tell, so I get asked this a lot at shows. So doing the 1 or 2 hours a night, I usually do about five nights a week. Um, Typically a fully custom deck would take me about 4 to 6 months.
Hmm.
And then the semi-custom one, something like the nerds that had a lot of customization, that probably took about 3 months.
Hmm.
But something like the honeybees that didn't have a whole lot of customization, that'll take me like a month or less. And
Right.
like
And then
the emoji deck took me like 2 weeks. So
really, and then as far as printing the decks are concerned, where you always go to USB-CC, like what is your preferred like
no,
manufacturing process?
I don't really like working with USB-C.
Okay.
The only time I've ever printed with them was with freelance decks.
Right.
Like the ornates, honeybees, sketch and draft with Will Roya.
Right.
I just every time you print with them, it seems like there's some new die line you have to put everything in,
Mm.
or some legal you have to change, or something like that. Or like with the honeybees, they wouldn't let us do this one Joker because it was too close to like their trademark Joker or something. Like, really? It had nothing to do, it was just the
Mm.
same pose. It was a similar pose, but it was all bees and stuff all around it and
Mhm.
stuff. So it was like, whatever. Um, so I've since the original Draconians, I've printed with Legends playing cards.
Okay.
Um, I just love working with them and printing with
And then
Legends.
you usually have them print the tuck boxes as well.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
I'm
I've
just trying to figure out obviously my decks are they tend to be like a little bit more involved to for rather say complicated or whatever.
mhm.
Uh I'm just amazed that you're able to get them sold at such a lower price. Like that's a low price. Like $10 is not a lot of money for a deck of
No,
cards nowadays.
no. the only decks that I've not making a lot of profit on is like maybe the House of Tudor had two foils on the tuck exterior and one foil on the tuck interior. That was a little over $5
Right.
printing cost.
Right.
So, but it's still.
But you keep everything everything pretty much is as far as I remember. I know that the Tiger King deck has some embellishments on the tuck.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the cards are printed in full color tuck boxes, sans emboss, correct?
Yeah, I'm not a
Except
big
for the
embossing
Draconian. The
fan.
Draconian ones have a little bit more embossing and stuff, don't they?
Actually, no. The Draconians have the originals. I think all 5 of them have clear UV spot ink over top to kind of mimic foil.
Right.
And I wanted some areas shiny and some areas not.
Right.
So that worked out nicely with those. It also worked the with the Draconians. We weren't sure, especially with the what I call them, the Brimstone and the Wildfire, the 2 black tucks. We weren't sure how the dragon scales were going to show up. I wanted them to be pretty subtle. So what we ended up doing was like 1 hit of Pantone white on the black paper, and that had just enough to be subtle, and then like the clear UV spot ink over top of that to kind of give a little shine.
Interesting.
And then it had foil, like the red or green foil, depending on the tuck, as well. So it's not like we do anything. The embossing. My stance on embossing is I'm visual, and embossing doesn't really do anything for me visually. So.
Right, it's more of a tactile thing.
Yeah, and the added cost for the embossing is just, I think, out of whack. Because
Right.
what is like usually like $1 or $2 per deck.
Well, they got to run every tuck
Yeah,
box through another machine. Like
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
And
That's
if you've got multiple tuck box, multiple embossing, I mean, it's just a pain in the butt, right? Like multiple aspects.
which is
Yeah,
probably
trust me,
why I
I
can.
ran into that problem. I mean, the successor decks that we did had 5 foils, so that's going through the machine 5 times each pass, and then an embossing pass.
Yeah.
So that one tuck box will
that'll
go through the machine 6 times.
that'll bump the costs up.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody wonders why my decks are so much more expensive than yours,
Yeah.
otherwise you're making us look bad, Randy.
The newest Draconians, the pricing on the foil card. So that one has what we did is it's 4 color process on the front and back of the cards, printed on like a silver mylar, holographic silver mylar material.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and the prototypes look really sweet. So I'm really curious to see how the final is going to do. And then I also did it's 4 color process plus a white undercoat in some areas to kind of block out the shininess in some spots. So like on the dragon scale back, I put all the black elements have the white undercoat, so those are going to be dull or dullish, and then all the red dragon scales should be shiny.
Oh, that's interesting. I can see that how you did that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and then same with the face cards. I had all the pips are the main areas of the pips are dull, so they'll be more playable than if they were shiny. And then on the cork cards, the outline, the black outline areas are all dull and stuff. So yeah.
Cool. What is that project? Final is that's already launched? That's fulfilling, correct? Like you've got your
So that's that's set to arrive in Chicago like on the 29th of this month, and then it'll take them a couple days to get them on a truck and drive them down to me in Indy, and then I'll just start shipping them right then.
Cool. So are you working on anything new? Like what's next? Like what's the
so with that, with those decks, I also printed a Michigan euchre deck, which has the
Right.
same
Oh,
idea as
interesting.
the Indiana euchre deck. That one I'm going to do a straight release like in November sometime,
So
just
tell
on
me
my
about
website.
euchre because I don't know much about it. Like what's
So
the
euchre's a game where it's four people, two against
uh-huh.
two,
Uh-huh.
and they don't use any. The game is a lot of back and forth to get a point, or multiple points if someone goes alone, loner hand. Um, and you don't use any 2 through 8 cards or jokers, so it's only 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, and Ace.
Okay.
So that's and then it's very popular in Indiana and Michigan.
Huh.
I grew up playing euchre with my family and
So
stuff
what do you do with those
college.
cards when are those cards in the deck? They are, correct? Those are
No,
the cards.
all the euchre decks I've done have
Uh-huh.
no 2 3 8s and no jokers, so I can fit two full euchre decks in one box.
Ah,
And then I set up this template of like custom euchre scorecards as well, because usually euchre play so euchre goes up to 10 points. So when a team gets 10 points, they won that round. And some people
right.
actually bet on euchre and stuff, or it's just you know trash talking rights in their family or something.
Okay.
Um,
Kind of like
so
dominoes for us
yeah,
Cubans.
so usually in Indiana they use 6 and 4 cards to keep score, and then in Michigan for some reason it's 2 5s to keep score. So the biggest thing with the euchre decks that shows, I have to show them the scorecards and like show them you put a dime as your marker and just move it to the next point, and they're like,
Uh,
oh, okay, that kind of thing. So
fun.
um, yeah,
That's definitely an interesting little niche then, right?
yes,
Like
yes.
I don't think I've ever seen a euchre deck before, so that's curious. I was just definitely curious about that.
Yeah, usually when I do Michigan and Indiana shows, euchre decks usually are about 25% to 33% of the total decks sold.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, yeah. So it's huge in those two states. But if I do a Chicago show, I get a
Mm,
lot of what's euchre, and so I haven't done too many Chicago shows in the last few years. And Ohio's kind of like a hit or miss depending
right.
on what area you go to. Like if you go to Northern Ohio, they're close to Michigan, so they know about euchre and stuff. But like Columbus or Cincinnati, they're not big into euchre. Um,
So all right, so let's talk about these. Tell me about this
so
because this is interesting. What is this?
so this is a deck I just finished the design for. I've been trying to find.
Oh, I
Um,
like this.
I don't know if they're officially called info decks, but I call them info decks. Like
Uh-huh.
there's been some on Kickstarter, like some on photography, learning photography. Like every card has
Yeah, I've
info
seen
on.
them. Yep,
Yeah.
I've seen them.
And then there's someone like wine or food or
Uh-huh.
whatever, pretty much anything. So I've been kind of brainstorming for years, like, well, what kind of info deck would I want to do? Because I like the idea of just doing it. And then um, just this year, beginning of the year, I started playing around with AI just to make sure I knew what it was in case it
Right.
turns my job obsolete, like some people say it is, but I don't think it ever will, because you
Right.
still need people to design it within a die line and stuff, which AI
Yeah.
can't do that.
Yeah.
And so,
At least for
uh,
now, until they figure out how to
yeah,
make die lines, like
yeah,
communicate
exactly.
die lines.
So I
Yeah.
was, um, my family and I went to England this summer, and one morning I woke up and I was just kind of, it was the weekend, so I was just laying in bed and I was thinking about the England trip
Mm,
of some of the stuff we had to plan on and stuff like that. And then it kind of hit me as like I love travel posters style,
mm,
which is God, that's been going on since like the golden age of
mhm,
advertising. And
mhm.
so I was like, oh, I wonder if AI can do travel destinations and like travel poster style. And then I kind of started thinking of like the travel deck and what I would do if I was just a travel fan and stuff like that, a fan of travel. And so
Mhm.
I came up with the idea of the map and then like a dot of where that destination is on
Right,
the
like where it
global map.
is.
And then the visited checkbox, so if you like went to that location and stuff. So I just started that same day I started playing around with Midjourney AI, which is what I
Mm.
use.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this can do it. And I was looking up some travel destinations and stuff I didn't even heard of, like that mountain with the rainbow stripes.
Yeah,
I
the
was,
Rainbow Mountain. Yeah, it's
yeah,
cool.
I had never heard of that. So I was like, you know what?
Yeah. It's like
Let's
mineral
see.
deposits.
Yeah, let's see if AI knows what this is, even though I don't. And so I did,
Oh,
I
I'm
typed it
sure they
in.
knows what
I was
knows.
like,
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap. And then I hurry up and Google it, look at the images and stuff. I'm like, okay, this will be work out well.
Yeah.
So this deck, so there's actually two decks in total. The other reason I use AI with this is because there's 110 illustrations that are needed for it. And I knew I would get pretty bored fast doing that for
Uh-huh.
one deck, and I would just abandon it eventually. Um, so I was like, well, I can do it AI. And um, so each suit has a different continent, focuses on a different continent, and then the hearts, both sets of hearts for the two decks focus on European continents. So there's or destinations. So there's 26 European destinations overall,
Uh-huh.
and then the
Uh-huh.
spades for both decks focus on North American
Right.
destinations. So
Yeah, makes
26,
sense.
yeah, 26 North American, and then there's 13 Africa, 13 Asia, 13 Oceania, and 13 South America. And then the four jokers between them are Antarctica destinations, which are
Oh, that's
mostly
interesting.
mostly just islands people take a boat to sightsee penguins or whatever. Yeah.
Cool. So,
And then
I've been, obviously AI is like a hot button topic, and I'm
yeah,
curious.
yeah,
It seems like you're embracing it. I also am a fan. Um, obviously I also care a lot about designers. I consider myself an artist myself, although I'm not a playing card designer. I've been in the television industry for 20 to 25 years, right? So
hmm,
like I make a living being creative in a lot of ways, and the applications there are certain useful applications, but a lot of people have rebelled against this idea of
yeah,
AI, and they hate it, they loathe it, they talk about how it's like Satan, you know what I mean? Like they might
yeah,
as well. um
yeah.
what was your
I
initial response when
yeah,
the technology became available?
I started seeing a lot of it last year, and I didn't know a whole lot about it. And then I started seeing like, oh, it's going to take over everything. So it's like, I got to figure out what this is at least.
Mm,
And I think for characters and people, it's just fun to play around with. I wouldn't
mm,
use it. Um, I wouldn't use it for playing cards.
mm,
I I like it with the something like with the travel thing, where it's like something that's not it's an inanimate object,
mm,
and it's a style that's existed for years that actually other artists emulate with like
mm,
their travel poster styles. Like you go to Comic Cons, you'll see all kinds of travel style posters of like Mordor or Hoth
mm,
or
mhm,
Tatooine and stuff like that. So
mm,
artists have actually emulated this style themselves.
mhm.
So I don't know how they can complain about
Well,
I
here's
did.
the thing. Here's my perspective on this, and I've talked about this. We had an AI episode a couple months back, but
Yeah.
you know, my perspective is I remember being a kid. In my, if I was a teenager, maybe I was like 13. I was like 12, 11 years old, getting my X-Men comic book in the mail, right? And it's
Hmm.
drawn by Jim Lee, and I love Jim Lee. I think he's an amazing artist. And I would sit and I would trace or I would draw, copy his
Hmm.
artwork for hours, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I'd reproduce his artwork from memory, right? And then I'd start drawing like he drew, right? And next thing I know,
Hmm.
I'm drawing like Jim Lee draws for an entire year. And all I'm doing is, in essence, copying the style of another artist.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just how we learn. And the
Yes.
scary
Yeah.
thing for some folks is that the machines are doing that, but they're just learning much faster than we do,
Oh yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's what scares folks. I honestly don't see the difference between, poring over the internet and looking for references for my artwork than a computer doing it. Now, obviously, the efficiency and the speed with which the program could do it is much faster.
Yeah.
And that's why it makes it so effective and so fast and so, daunting or scary to some people. But there's no difference in my opinion. So I don't understand this idea of owning a style like that's not, nobody owns anything like in that respect. If you drew it, well, okay, you own that drawing, but outside of the reference of that, like, I mean, nobody owns, a mountain. Like, anybody could draw, you know what I'm saying? It's just a silly a silly idea to me.
Yeah. It's a topic that's, I think, going to be debated for years and years.
Yeah.
I'm a little, so my goal is to launch that on Kickstarter probably in like January or February. And I have no idea how the response is going to be with the AI stuff.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna put in the campaign. I did this in Midjourney AI, all that kind of stuff. And I know there's a lot of criticism right now of like people catching playing card designers using AI but not saying they're using AI or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's happening not just in playing cards. I think that's something that's happening everywhere. Like Absolute Vodka put out an ad, and if they, if somebody's like, oh, that's AI, that finger looks weird, or like Paramount Pictures produces like, oh, what was it? Marvel did a poster for their new movie, the Thunderbolts, right? And on this poster, this poster they did for whatever reason, they cropped one finger out of like one of the characters from the end of the he's on the edge of the poster, and the finger just got cropped off. It's not that
could easily be forgotten when you're doing.
Yeah, it was just a thing that like 10 years ago nobody would have batted an eye at it.
Yeah.
But now it's like, everybody's up in an up, arms are up in an uproar because AI. Oh man, did they use AI on them? Did Marvel use AI? They're not hiring art. No, the photographer just cropped the finger out of the picture. Like, it's not a big deal. But like, people are flipping out about everything. They're hypersensitive to it,
Oh yeah. That's for
so
sure.
So I was curious, like, how are you going to handle that? Like, I think it's smart to just be upfront about it. I don't know. It's weird.
I'm just gonna take it as it comes. I don't know what's gonna happen when I launch that thing. We actually have done. Me and a coworker have done some AI stuff for my day job a little bit, mostly for background graphics and stuff.
Right, sure.
Because we're doing. I usually work on about 10 to 15 projects a day for my day job. And so it's just fast, and deadline after deadline. And, we use a lot of stuff. We buy a lot of stock images and stuff because that's what you got to do.
Of course.
So AI, I've learned, is great for creating stock images that you
absolutely 100%. But then you're going to get the people that are crying and saying, "Oh, you're all you're doing is putting stock image artists out of a job." But like, this is the human condition. Like did portraiture artists like picket down the street when photography became a thing? Because I mean, this is what we're talking about here, right? Like, all of a sudden everybody has a camera now in their hands. Like, what about all the purists? Like, photography is an art. And but now that, and mind you, now there's, photography is like a world-renowned art, established art field, right? And you could 100 years ago people were saying that photography was was cheating. So it's the same idea. It's like the tools and what you're talking about, like, creating backgrounds and graphical elements or whatever, I mean, it's built into Photoshop. I mean, if you want to talk about like another software, right? Photoshop was another thing that people were like up in arms. Oh, you're not taking the photograph, the real. You're cheating because you're manipulating the photo. No, this is called human advancement, artistic advancement, like tools. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
That one of the ones you showed, the Angel's Envy heart.
Yeah.
That did an AI. The client wanted a Valentine's Day pole topper, die cut pole topper, which is like just cardboard printed. And they wanted angel wings made out of wood in a heart shape. I was like, well, that's not going to exist. So I started playing around with AI and got it.
And you got it.
Yeah, and it worked great. I
Yeah,
still had to, I still had to clean it up and res
of
it up and
course,
clean it up a lot because some of it was a little pixelated, and then I had to outline it
of
to
course.
yeah, make clean edge, and then build the dye lines around it, and then like the bottle there is a lug on, so that's a separate piece from the wings, and then the
Right,
box underneath it's a separate piece as well.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, like obviously there's a lot of additional aspects involved. It's just like anything else. You're processing but what it frees you of is having to sit there laboriously paint
yeah,
the wings, which would take you hours upon hours upon hours. Like in my field, in the television industry, I use it. I do a lot of development work
yeah.
where I'm making tapes or sizzle reels for networks that are pitching a show to their
Mhm.
own internal brass, right? Like their committees or whatever that pick the shows that they make, that green light the shows. They're getting pitched all these shows from all the different elements of the production arm in the
Yeah,
in the network. And we do all these shows, and sometimes they're pitching a show for a show about sandcastles made out of volcanic sand. Like, I mean, I'm just pulling that out of the ether, but um if there's no photograph of that, what am I going to do? Like, you know
hmm
what I'm saying? Not show it. Well,
yeah,
that's not going to sell.
yeah,
The
exactly.
you know what I mean? So you got to use the tools that are at your
Yeah,
disposal, and AI just happens to be really good at that.
and nowadays ad agencies they don't have illustrators on staff.
Right.
um and we rarely um I remember years ago when we were still in San Francisco, I went to a couple photo shoots where we did like some cocktail shots or some bottle shots in the photo shoots,
Uh-huh.
but we don't do that anymore at all. It's just a waste of money nowadays.
Right.
It's
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
no,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
it's
cool. I mean, look, I think good for you for utilizing the technology in ways that benefit you. I think that's smart, and especially, you're gonna go out to these shows with those decks, and people aren't even gonna question it. They're not even gonna think
yeah,
twice about it. They're gonna pick up the deck because it's a cool travel deck,
yeah,
and maybe the Kickstarter doesn't go gangbusters because there's a contingency of people that are going to be like, I don't
yeah.
know about this. It's AI, but who cares? If you get enough to print them, you'll sell them at the shows. Like that's the way it works.
And I think casual playing card buyers would like that deck quite a bit. I
Yeah,
mean,
sure. I think it's a pretty
yeah,
cool deck. I mean, it's a good idea, and I think the art looks good, and you to definitely put effort into making it cohesive and making it feel like every illustration was illustrated by the same entity, so to speak. Like it's not. It feels like the Ace of Hearts and the Queen of Clubs make sense in the same deck. It's not like a
I
bunch
bet.
of different mishmash of
Yeah,
styles, whatever.
exactly.
Yeah. So.
I'm gonna throw a buddy of mine under the bus here.
Uh huh.
So Steve Brooks, who I've known from the 52 Joker convention
Uh
for
huh.
years and years.
Uh huh.
A lot of times I'll show him decks while I'm working on it and stuff.
Uh huh.
And he was very anti AI when I sent him that. He was like, "Why are you doing this? Like,
Right.
oh, you gotta draw these and you gotta do all this kind of stuff." Like, oh,
Right.
if I did that, I wouldn't finish this deck. I wouldn't even come close to finish it.
Right.
And that was like months ago. And now Steve just had me send the link to Midjourney so he can learn AI.
Yeah. I mean, Midjourney is fantastic. I mean, I have recently started, and I can share with you and with anybody who's watching, because I think it's kind of interesting, like how the kind of things you can do. So I recently started just for fun. Like I'm a big fan of, and you can see the toys behind me, right? Like this
hmm
wall of toys and stuff. Like I'm a big fan of 80s IP, right? And like I love
Okay.
GI Joe. I grew up with GI Joe. I was
Oh yeah.
7 years old when GI Joe first burst on the scene. So like I was like the target demographic, and it grew up with me, right? Like from
hmm
about 82 to 90. My prime childhood, early teenager years where I was still into toys, that's where the years where GI Joe was like famous, right?
Yep.
So they did so I decided that I wanted to obviously I have all this experience in the world of television and pitching shows and making development tapes and reimagining things, and I was like, hey, it'd be really cool if we could make a live action, if I could create, like, you know, because there's been live action GI Joe movies, but they've just been, to me, they've been terrible. They've just been, you know, I don't know, the people making them don't have anything. They don't have any you know,
nostalgia for the characters.
Yeah, right. They're just making some show that they think might work or something. So I decided that I wanted to do a version of what this GI Joe show would be like. You know, what a premium adult, made for adults show, made for adults that were fans of the property when we were kids, right? Like what, like something that grew up with us. And I used AI to kind of create this pitch for a show. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with GI Joe at all. There's this of, there's the Dreadnoks, right? The Dreadnoks are like this biker gang that works with Cobra. And I thought, well, this is a perfect entry point into what could end up being a cool story. And that's what I did. So I designed like, you know, titles, and I did like this, you know, obviously using, you know, I adding the titles myself, but using elements that I produced in AI to kind of create this scene, this world of what Generation Joe is the name of the kind of like the production on, right? Like what I'm doing, right? But like, how cool is this stuff? Like, these look like stills from a movie, right? Like, and the fact that you can do these things and create like these entire worlds, you know, and these characters, you know, to have, you know, battles and you know, be very specific. But obviously the images aren't easy, you know, like this image might generate with 10 fingers, and this guy over here is like, you know, wearing a clown mask for whatever reason. I got to go in there and paint it out, or, you know, and change things. Like, there's a lot of that goes involved, but it's just a really cool technology. And I love it. I think it's going to change the way filmmakers, artists, and everybody works, you know, in that field, and that's exciting to me.
It's great for like storyboarding and concept art and stuff.
And you know, from the perspective of a frustrated filmmaker like myself, because, you know, I mean, I made short films when I was younger, but this is a different world we live in now, right? Like, I missed the vlogger years. Like, I wasn't like, that wasn't as readily available to me when I was growing up. Cameras were like, I had digital video cameras, but nobody was watching the stuff I was making. Nowadays, a kid is making stuff, putting it on the internet, and it gets 100,000 views, right? Like, it's a different world. But, you know, like, the fact that we're capable, that we're not limited by budgetary constraints, and it's only getting better, you know, for that kind of stuff. It's really cool. It's exciting. Anyway, enough about that. So this is a show about playing cards. I've probably lost half the audience here talking about it. But I do want to close out. Usually every episode we have a guest, a guest to talk about their top 5 favorite decks of all time. Now, I didn't give you a chance. I didn't warn you in advance. Do you have a favorite deck of cards? Do you have a few decks of cards that you absolutely love, that you want to shout out, that you think this is a perfect specimen?
So I wrote some down.
Okay, awesome.
So I made sure not to pick any of them in my designs.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's smart.
So definitely revision 1, because that's the one that got me started on
Which
it.
one? Which one?
Revision 1, the one the one I saw on Kickstarter 13 years ago.
Wow.
And I was like,
okay. I don't, you know, hold on. I'm going to look it up real quick. It's called Revision.
Yeah. So it's a Bicycle Revision 1 deck. Circle City Cards. Adam Clarkson did it. Adam he got out of playing cards years ago after he did this Green Army Men deck. And then the producers of Green Army Men kind of gave him a cease and desist, and he.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Is that like a thing that people own the Green Army Men?
Guess.
Like, I thought it was just Green Army Men. Like,
yeah, I know. And he did. That's all he said, Green Army Men or something. But the cease and desist was after the Kickstarter funded, and so he couldn't finish it.
Oh no! So what happened?
I think he just disappeared. He just.
Oh no! Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah. But yeah, so Revision 1, and I kind of did nod to that deck when I did this, you know, the sketch and draft decks with Will Roya and
yeah. I mean, this is so simple by today's standards, right? Like, such a simple kind of idea, you know. But yeah, 2012, $26,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
like what, like
Yeah. So
$53,000 of today money?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got I got Anubis deck from Steve
Oh,
Minty.
Steve Minty. Yeah, Steve
What's,
Minty.
what's the other Osiris, I think it is. Yeah, I think so. Those decks, the original ones.
Yeah,
And then I got Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring.
those are good decks.
House of the Rising Spade.
Oh, the Lorenzo deck. Yeah, that's a fantastic deck.
And then the current one is Space Suits. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
Russ Gray for Meadowlark playing cards.
And I saw that Legends printed that, and
Yeah.
so I called Lawrence up. It's like, hey, they solved the problem with the the 4-color process on matte paper stock, because
Uh-huh.
when he started moving everything to China, their matte paper for the tuck boxes doesn't take in the ink really well. It like makes it kind of weak looking, the colors, you know,
Interesting.
it doesn't keep the
Desaturated.
saturation, the
Mhm.
vibration with the colors.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, these guys use clear UV spot ink on a lot of specific color areas. And like those colors on the under the UV like really pop. So I was
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna start doing that now with all my tucks that I want. So like the Lawrence is working on prototypes right now for the Travel the World decks where all the color areas are going to be clear UV spot ink, and then it's going to be normal
Cool.
paper
So it's
stuff.
gonna have like a Polaroid feel in a
Yeah,
way, where like
yeah,
the picture's glossy.
yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
And yeah, that's a beautiful deck. And you know, obviously in that kind of style that you know, those kind of old world
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
poster style that was
yep,
big thing in like the 60s probably, right? Like
yeah,
all 30s through the 60s really.
yeah. The whole
Yeah.
lunchbox comic
Yeah.
book style.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
I think
All
that
right,
was
well,
5. Yeah, yeah.
excellent. Well, Randy, thank you so much, man, for coming on here and sitting,
No problem.
chatting with us for an hour and letting us know about things that you've got going on. I'm excited. Is there where can people find you? Like, is there any places where people can follow you?
Just Midnight Cards on Instagram.
Okay, Midnight Cards on Instagram, and you have a
Yeah,
website as well too, where you sell cards.
yeah. It's just midnightcards.com. Yeah,
Midnightcards.com. So if anybody
yeah.
out there wants to get some midnight cards
Yep,
and
yep.
support Randy and what he's doing, and then that's where you go find them. And I'm assuming
Yeah,
on Instagram you will also be announcing when the Kickstarter campaigns are going live and all that stuff,
yeah.
correct?
Yeah, yeah. I don't
All right.
post on Instagram a whole lot, or I don't post a whole lot anyway.
Right.
But I'll post like once the Draconians come in, once I
Yeah.
start shipping those, I'll kind of give updates on Kickstarter and Instagram, and then yeah, I'll do the Michigan Euchre after that, and then Travel Deck. Some point I'll start teasing for that, like in
Cool.
December or something. Yeah.
Excellent.
So
All
I'm
right.
I'm
Well,
curious to see how the reactions are on Instagram, even with the AI doing that.
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. I think some people are going to complain regardless. Some people are
Yeah.
going to complain regardless. You just ignore those people. Like it's like when I started sharing those images I just shared with you, like some
Yeah.
some people are like, man, this is awesome. Like Hasbro, get this guy to make this. And then other people are like, oh, this is AI, bleh,
Yeah.
vomit emoji. Like, get out of here. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care about, you know,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
antiquated perspective. Anyway, but yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on. And to all you guys watching, don't forget to subscribe and like and leave a comment below so that we can get some engagement. That'd be great. If you have any more questions for Randy, leave them in the comment section and we'll loop back around and see if we can get them answered. Thank you again so much for joining us. We will catch you on the flip side. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.